So today with us, we have myself, which is Rachel. I'm an MSW candidate. We also have Alyssa. She's a MSW candidate as well. And we've invited you to talk to us because we want to help educate and inform others about the organization of protecting Kansas children from sexual predators, but we also wanted to inform people about Aaron's Law and what that looks like.
We're both currently working with children in some capacity. I'm working with children who are survivors of DV, and then Rachel is.
I'm currently working with USD 259 as a practicum student, but I've done work with ICTSOS here locally, which is the anti-human trafficking nonprofit, and we did a lot of preventative education about sexual assault and human trafficking.
Kind of the first thing we have, just for the people who will end up listening to it, if you just want to kind of give us a rundown of who you are, what your role is, and your organization.
Sure. So my name is Tess Ramirez. I am one of the co-directors of Protecting Kansas Children from Sexual Predators. Now, we are not a formal entity of any kind. We're not an LLC. We're not a nonprofit. We are just a group of volunteers that are all survivors of child sexual abuse that work to educate the community on the prevalence of child sexual abuse, as well as work on advocacy at the state level to change laws as they apply to helping survivors recover, as well as holding predators accountable.
Just a random question that popped into my mind, because we did a hearing analysis, so I watched the hearing that you provided testimony for. How many times have you provided testimony for this bill?
Only once for this bill. We have testified on other things that are related. So this was the first year that our group pushed for Aaron's Law. We previously worked on other things. So in 2023, we actually removed the statute of limitations for child sexual abuse, criminally and extended civil, and which is great because then survivors have more time to hold their predators accountable.
Right.
But we can't hold people accountable if we don't get kids talking about who's hurting them. And so our next step was to move on to prevention to try and empower kids and adults as they grow to know what kind of opportunities they have for that.
Yeah.
So through your guys' Facebook, you guys provide a lot of information about Aaron's Law, and we also have created some fact sheets. But for those who might be listening, could you just explain the goal of Aaron's Laws and what you guys hope to accomplish with that?
Sure. So really what it comes down to is preventing and identifying child sexual abuse. So Aaron's Law is really two parts. One is mandating that all teachers in Kansas, public teachers, get training in identifying the signs of child sexual abuse, as well as how to handle disclosures when a child tells them, and how to properly make those reports, because we've seen a lot of cases where teachers don't know what to do, or they don't see the signs, because sexual abuse signs are much different than any other kind of abuse signs. And we've seen that since teachers aren't trained in that specifically, it's getting missed a lot. So we want to make sure that all of those children that are showing those signs are getting the help they need. The second part of that is going to be the student education piece. So this means that every school would be required to somehow give all of the students once a year body safety education. And it will have to be age appropriate. So if we're talking kindergartners, we're talking good touch, bad touch. And that literally means if someone touches you under your swimsuit, you tell someone. And one of your goals is going to be probably, identifying trusted adults in your life. So you're just helping them realize if someone touches you in those private areas, here are people you can go to for help. And because there are a lot of kids who are, I like to use incest as an example. If dad is molesting you throughout your whole life, that's all you know. You don't know that it's wrong until someone tells you, oh, no one should be touching you there. Obviously, dad isn't going to tell you that no one should be touching you there, even though most people say parents should teach your kids. Absolutely, parents should teach your kids. But there are a lot of kids that are in situations like that that don't get that type of education. So Aaron's Law would require that that kind of information be provided to kids, because it gives them the knowledge to be able to go report and seek help. And there was actually, so this is already passed in 38 states. Kansas is one of 12 that is left. The year after Texas passed it, they saw a 283% increase in reports by teachers, because kids were talking and teachers could see those signs. So just think about how many more kids that saved. It's incredible.
So what do you kind of think is the biggest thing? Because like you said, we're one of 12 that hasn't passed it. It's been introduced since 2013, back to back to back, and nothing's happened. So what do you think is one of the biggest things that's keeping this from getting passed in Kansas?
So there's a lot of different pieces to that. One, politics are fun. So back in 2013, when the bill was first came in and Aaron came and testified, all good. And then, crazy things happened and it just didn't go anywhere. What we've learned from just working legislation now in advocacy is that you really need someone on the ground at the state house actively advocating, because otherwise it just gets pushed to the side. Not because people don't want it, not because they don't care, but because they just don't have the time. And if you're not in front of their faces, it falls off. So the way that we get hearings is we schedule meetings with legislators individually. So this year we met with 52 individuals, legislators, one-on-one, told them our story, told them about Aaron's Law, how it helps, and explained everything, give them opportunities to ask questions, make sure we know whether they're a yes or a no, and try to fix anything if they are a no, if that's possible. Because sometimes, people have questions that are legitimate and there are things that we haven't thought of, and if there's ways to make the bill better, absolutely, we're here for it. This year it got a little bit complicated. So one of the things about politics we learned is that it's easier if you take the red and the blue out of it as much as you can. So I actually wrote the bill myself and then submitted it myself to the committee on behalf of our group, because that way it's not been submitted by a Republican or a Democrat and they can't say, I can't support it because it's the other side. So
Absolutely.
That's a smart method.
100%.
It makes it easier. And we've had great bipartisan support all year. And frankly, I know you guys said you watched the hearing. What you don't know is all of the meetings that went on before that. So before we got to the hearing that day, we were told that everybody that had submitted testimony was a yes, except for one person that was a no, but we knew that was going to be a no. And then we'd met with everybody on the committee and everybody was a yes, except for one person who met with us like the Friday before and said, I'm going to try and kill your bill. We watched the hearing, it didn't go as smoothly as we'd hoped. We found out the day of the hearing that the Child Advocacy Centers of Kansas had changed their testimony from proponent to neutral. We found out literally 15 minutes before we walked into the hearing.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. That was one that kind of shocked me a little bit. And then we were just talking in our class today how it's frustrating because, you have people who are doing all of this work and then you go and you watch this hearing and there's no one, at least in there, that's saying we don't want this. Everyone's saying, yeah, we're for it, or at least neutral recommendations. So it's like, why can't we just keep moving?
Regarding Aaron's Law, who did you guys have in mind of being the ones who were going to give the trainings in school? Would that look like the counselors, the teacher, the social worker, or would it be an outside person coming in to provide that education in schools?
Good question. So one of the things that we've realized in our time is that one of the things that's really important to Kansas communities is local control. So that's one of the things we built into the bill. Rather than us dictating what curriculum is used and who is doing what we did is we created it so that each school board can look at the available curriculum, decide for themselves what they want to implement. And then we actually ultimately left it up to each individual school's principal to decide who gives that presentation. Mostly we did this, one, because local control is important, and two, because I'm sure you guys have seen there are CACs and other sexual assault organizations out there doing incredible work. I've talked to some school counselors who have incredible programs already going at the school. We don't want to stop that and say, stop what you're doing and go do this plan C that we've arbitrarily picked. Because let's be real, every community has different needs, different concerns. There are some areas in Kansas where human trafficking is huge. And there are other areas in Kansas where it's still a concern, but it's not as bad. So that's not as big of a focus. There are other communities that don't speak English. Like there are other things that you have to consider other than just like there was some concern about whether it be accredited or not accredited. We have updated the language of the bill. We want it to be research-based and research-informed, not necessarily accredited, because there's a huge, huge cost that goes into accreditation. And what we've learned is that with the accreditation process, because of the way the things run, is if there needs to be an update, like AI takes over something, which has been happening a lot, they can't just go in and update the information they're giving kids. They have to go back through this process to request all these changes to update the curriculum. So it actually causes more outdated information than if we just say that it needs to be research-based.
Yeah, I think that kind of got missed in the hearing a little bit from what I was seeing, because the accreditation was really focused on, and there's so much research out there. Like it's not hard to find if people are just willing to look for it. Granted, I mean, I know not everyone knows how to look for it, but there's plenty of people that do.
Right. And I know this is one of your questions, so sorry I'm skipping there.
No, it's okay.
One of the other reasons that it didn't go through is there was a lot of misinformation presented in that hearing. And I'm not trying to badmouth anyone or cause ruckus, even though I do that occasionally, not on purpose. I just like everything to be factual. I think transparency is so important. So there were some information presented that said that, CACs have this full accredited program and that it's ready to go and yada, yada. It's actually only accredited for grades 2 through 5. Aaron's Law that we've requested is K through 12. What are we doing about the rest? And it was also represented in the hearing that those presentations were free. When we were told, we talked to a school district specifically, and we know a school board member, and they said, that organization asked us for $25,000 for next school year to continue this program. So I think, as much as I hate it, our bill turned into a money grab. And if you would have told me last year that this would happen, I would not have believed you. In my brain, it's a conversation. At the end of the day, it is a conversation. It's a conversation I had with my kids the other day in the car where we rehashed everything, just to make sure they understood. And we do that occasionally, as parents and people should. But I mean, there are books you can read. The book that I love is It's My Body, What I Say Goes. It's very PG, but it gets all the really important information across. Our group is we had some donations this year, which was interesting for us. That's new for us. But we're actually buying those books, and we are sending one to each of the school counselors in the state as our goal by the end of the year. So we just ordered 250 and we'll start shipping them out. So
that's awesome.
yeah, we're really excited. So we're hoping, even though the law didn't go through this year, we're hoping to at least have put that ability to give the presentations to the schools at least.
Yeah. Kind of the last thing we had on here was, say these trainings and this stuff was to be implemented in the future. What would kind of be your thoughts, ideas on how to go about evaluating and improving it over time?
And that's kind of what goes back to it's up to the school boards. They get to determine what's best for their community. What's really been interesting as we've talked to people all across the state is we have teachers reaching out to us saying they want to do it. We have law enforcement in different areas that are going into school and giving this. We've actually met with a handful of bigger organizations like Moxa that say if a school doesn't want to do it themselves, we'll come do it for free. Absolutely, just tell us when. We have multiple organizations willing to do that. So then when they came back and said we need $5 million, I was like, what are you talking about? I have all these organizations lined up, ready to go. I have somebody else that works for Washburn University that is willing to take 2 weeks and go train all the trainers in Western Kansas if that's what they want. I think with a program like this, it gets better as time goes on. And I think once it is implemented, that they will use each other as sounding boards to make things better. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get the education and those tools in the kids' hands, no matter how it gets there. I would rather have an imperfect presentation or a disclosure handled not perfectly than that kid never have the words to tell.
Yeah. For sure.
My co-director, Kim, she likes to say, if a kid is drowning in a pool, you jump in and save them. You don't go wait and find the lifeguard and the life preserver and all the other things. You don't wait around for all that stuff. You just jump in and save it. And right now we have kids in Kansas being raped every single day at home, and we're not helping them. And I just can't understand that.
Yeah, we were talking about too how there's so many bills this session that have already been passed too. We were talking about like the bell-to-bell phone bill. We're passing this saying, we want to do this for kids in schools or whatever, but we're not wanting to focus on keeping them safe in schools and outside of schools, which is frustrating, hard to see, but
Mm-hmm.
And it is frustrating. I will say, and it's so hard to tell from the outside, but again, we met with 52 legislators. Of that, we got 4 no's. So everybody was on board. The tricky part about politics is you got to get it out of committee. And as you could see from the hearing, we got dive bombed, and we had gone first, so we didn't even have any time to like fix anything.
Yeah.
And then that's what it was. But we are still working with all those people. In fact, Representative Estes has mentioned maybe bringing it up during the special child welfare committee that meets over the summer. So that is a possibility. Sorry, and one other thing I just wanted to mention is during the hearing, one of the things they talked about was they gave the horror story of like when a disclosure was handled improperly. And they're like, we don't want people giving these presentations that aren't trained and handled disclosures. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's absolutely, we want everyone to be trained. That's the whole point of this. But 54% of survivors tell a friend, a peer first.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. That's what my co-director did. 24% more tell a family member or an adult that's in their lives regularly. Only 14% of disclosures actually happen to the professionals. So the fact that we're denying kids this education when only 14% of them might disclose, it's just crazy to me. And I think that's, again, the big part of just misinformation that was presented, because spending all the time about perfect disclosures. And if you really want to come down to it, handling a disclosure perfectly means that you listen to them. You don't ask any questions, really. You just go make the report, and we want to make sure the reports are made, obviously. But then they go do a forensic interview, and then really, because of the criminal process, parents and other people are instructed not to talk to the child about it at all, which is important for the criminal process because you do want to make sure that their story is the same for prosecution. But I always wonder, how much is that hurting the victim?
Yeah.
Like, going through it as a child, I remember like no one talked about it, and I just felt like everyone abandoned me at that point because it felt like no one cared. So I would rather and only 3% of reported cases actually end in a conviction. So we're kids that a good way to handle disclosure is to report it and then not talk about it again, so that we can hold the bad guy accountable. Which that part's important, but I also believe more almost in healing than I do in accountability sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Tess, I just came to mind, but I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
So, which you've been advocating for this bill for quite some time, and we've also had the experience of our final spring semester, we've spent this whole semester participating in advocacy efforts. So like we also went to the Capitol and dropped off flyers and fact sheets about Aaron's Law and the importance of spreading education. We've continued informing peers, classmates. We talk about it very loudly. So what advice would you give us to get not just ourselves, not just our classmates, but how else could people take an action in advocating for this and talking about the importance of getting this bill passed for kids?
Hi. That makes me want to cry. I didn't know that happened. Thank you guys so much. That's a lot. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit. So when all of this started, there was a group of about 6 survivors that are working together on legislation, and that was to statute of limitations reform. Over time, people have got burnt out. It's hard. It's really hard. And so now it's just down to me and Kim that run everything. And it's exhausting. But we so appreciate you guys. So things that you can do to support are as silly as it sounds, follow us on Facebook and share it. We're about to, I think we hit 30,000 followers yesterday. We started the Facebook page because a really important senator told us that he didn't think this was that big of an issue in Kansas and that not that many people here cared. Clearly, he was very wrong. But we've learned that that platform allows us to reach out to survivors. So like when we had that hearing, all of those survivors who came and testified were our followers from Facebook that just happened to find us and connect with us. So we've built this community of survivors that help push for these things. So really just continue what you're doing, also just educating people around you, talking to local communities, legislators. We talk to literally anybody we can go to. We've presented everywhere from BACA to sports clubs. Like we'll go anywhere. And just keep talking about it, because if we overcome that silence, I really do think that it will go through.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And I'm very excited to be able to share this with people so people can get more insight of what all went into Aaron's Law and the impact that it has on you personally and thousands of people in Kansas. So I just want to make sure that I say thank you for all the hard work you're doing. It is not going underappreciated. I know voices are silent, but there are so many people that are so grateful for everything that you are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for you guys and everything you're doing. There's not enough people like you in the world.
Aw. Well, thank you again for taking the time.